As I speak, the United States has at least 3 new stealth aircraft in active development, a new nuclear intercontinental ballistic missile, new classes of nuclear gravity bombs being integrated into stealth aircraft like the F-35, a new class of nuclear ballistic missile submarines larger than any the US has ever fielded before, and a whole lot more. And that's prompted several people to ask on this platform and others if the US is preparing for a global conflict in the not-too-distant future. And the simple answer is yes. But the more complicated answer is that the US is hoping that preparation itself is what prevents that next large-scale conflict from actually erupting. And the word we use for this is deterrence. Now, the basic premise behind deterrence, as I've said on this channel before, is to present such a capable military footing to your adversaries that they think twice about engaging you in direct conflict. And this has really been the primary role of the US military for better than a half century now, as the United States has found itself in several small regional conflicts, some that spanned for decades, but there hasn't been a large-scale conflict between global powers since the end of World War II, in large part because of this deterrent strategy. But many of the platforms, weapons, and systems the United States relied on to maintain this deterrent posture all throughout the Cold War are still in service today and are aging out of relevance. And the truth is, throughout some 20 years of the global war on terror, the US just kept kicking those cans down the road because near-peer conflict was not their primary concern. All throughout the 90s and 2000s, the United States was really the only power on the global stage. But in 2012, China's Xi Jinping took power, and since then he has revolutionized the Chinese military with the specific goal of being able to fight and beat the United States. And that is a big part of why you've seen a resurgence in focus in advanced defense technologies within the United States. And this sort of military buildup in hopes of cultivating peace is not without precedent. In fact, we can look back to DARPA's Cold War assault breaker concept as an excellent example. You see, throughout a good portion of the Cold War, NATO was well aware of the fact that Europe was straight up outmatched by Soviet and Warsaw Pact nations' armor and troops sitting right on their border. Knowing full well that a full-scale Soviet invasion of Europe would likely continue unabated until reinforcements could be marshaled and sent in on a counter-offensive. And these very real concerns led to DARPA's assault breaker concept, which was a reconnaissance and strike complex meant to engage the second wave of Soviet equipment pouring into Europe, effectively cutting off that first attacking wave from any logistical support and making it possible to surround and overrun them. Now, this was no small undertaking, but it was also greatly successful, and by 1977, the chief of the Soviet Red Army General Staff even said publicly that this new assault breaker concept undermined Soviet warfighting doctrine and plans, effectively eliminating Soviet confidence that such an assault would be successful. And that is what deterrence is all about. You see, deterring conflict with an aggressive state like Russia or China, nations that have demonstrated their general disinterest in adhering to international norms or even international laws, can't be done through diplomacy alone. And if these nations see you as standing between them and their overarching strategic objectives and perceive you as too weak to stop them from achieving those objectives, they will go right through you in order to get there. So to deter such a conflict, you need to defeat your opposition's theory of victory. In other words, the plan they have that they think they can use to steamroll through you. If you can demonstrate your ability and, importantly, your capacity to stop that strategy from being successful, you will stop them from enacting that strategy. Ultimately, warfare is often a game of numbers, as we've seen with Russia's invasion of Ukraine turning into a fight of attrition. But if you can see beforehand that that math may not play out in your benefit, well, you're less likely to take that offensive action and more likely to look for alternatives. And that is the whole idea behind American deterrent military strategy and these efforts to field high-end, exquisite weapon systems that may ultimately never actually see a fight. Platforms like the F-22 Raptor that some call a failure because it's never had to shoot an enemy aircraft down, but in reality is a resounding success, because every time it could have shot an enemy aircraft down, that enemy aircraft ran away.